I'm continuing my series on Henry VIII's alleged illegitimate children by looking today at Tudor poet and playwright Richard Edwards, who some believe was Henry VIII's illegitimate son. But is there any evidence to support this theory, or is it just a myth? Let me explore the life of Richard Edwards. Richard Edwards was born in around 1525 and was educated at Corpus Christi College, Oxford from May 1540, graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in 1544. His biographer, John R. Eliot Jr., states that following his degree, he went on to be elected to a probationary fellowship at Corpus and then a full fellowship in 1546. After further studies at Oxford, where he obtained a master's, he became a gentleman of the Chapel Royal in 1553, becoming a master of the children of the chapel from 1561 until his death in 1566. In her book, The Collected Works of Richard Edwards, Politics, Poetry and Performance in 16th Century England, Rosalind King dates Edwards' birth to 1524, and she and Philippa Jones, author of The Other Tudors, write of how Edwards studied music under musician George Etheridge. According to Jones, Edwards was ordained as a priest and elected theologian at Christ Church College, and he served as a priest at St Helens, Worcester, before joining the Chapel Royal. In 1560, according to Jones, he married Margaret Babb at North Petherton, but she died giving birth or shortly after the birth of their son William. Edwards went on to marry Ellen Griffith in 1562, and they had 4 children together: Marie, Gwyn, Elizabeth and John. Jones dates Edwards' death to 1567, writing that he died at Edwards Hall near Cardiff. Edwards is known mainly for his poems and plays. He wrote a comedy, Damon and Pythias, in 1564, which was performed at court and at Lincoln's Inn during the Christmas season of 1564 and 1565. And his 2-part play, Palamon and Arcite, which was based on Chaucer's The Knight's Tale, was performed at Christ Church Hall, Oxford, as part of the entertainment laid on for Queen Elizabeth I's visit to the city. John R. Eliot Jr. quotes the Oxford antiquarian Miles Windsor, who described the Queen's reaction to the play. Apparently, she laughed full-heartedly afterward at some of the players, and when the play was ended and she called for Mr. Edwards, the author, and gave him very great thanks with promises of reward for his pains. He also wrote the play Misogynous. With regards to his poetry, 13 of his poems were published after his death in the 1576 miscellany, The Paradise of Dainty Devices. Edwards was also a composer. John R. Eliot Jr. writes of how a keyboard arrangement by Edwards for a poem by Francis Kindelmarsh or Kindlemarsh still survive, and there are pieces in other books from the period. John R. Eliot Jr. states that Edwards was highly popular during his career and that translator Thomas Twine called him the flower of all our realm and phoenix of our age. So there you go, that's a potted history of Richard Edwards. But how on earth is he linked to Henry VIII? Well, we know nothing about Edwards' family. Historian John R. Eliot Jr., his Oxford Dictionary of National Biography biographer, states that Edwards' parents are unknown, as is his birthplace. But his previous biographer, Arthur Henry Bullen, who dated his birth to around 1523, believes that he was born in Somerset. And websites like Find a Grave and some ancestry sites, none of whom are known for their accuracy, state that his parents were William Thomas Edwards and Agnes Bupine or Blewett. And Find a Grave states that Agnes was a mistress of King Henry VIII. In her book, The Other Tudors, Philippa Jones writes of how David Dean Edwards of Baltimore, in writing his family history, The Edwards Legacy, published in 1992, found that a family legend told of Edwards being fathered by Henry VIII. It was said that the king met Edwards' mother Agnes while using a royal hunting park and lodge at North Petherton. Kelly Hart, in her book The Mistresses of Henry VIII, writes of how evidence for Edward's being fathered by Henry VIII rests, and I quote, rests on him receiving an Oxford education that his family could not have afforded. But she questions this, saying that he could have had a benefactor or a scholarship, or that he may have been fathered by a rich man, not necessarily the king. Surely, if we don't know for certain who his parents were, we can't exactly pass comment on what they could or couldn't afford for their son. In my own digging, I found that Petherton Park, a deer park around North Petherton in Somerset, was a royal forest, and that Sir William Courtenay was the keeper from 1513 to 1535. I haven't found any mention of Henry VIII visiting the park in 1524-1525. He visited the West Country on progress with Anne Boleyn in summer 1535, but that's a decade after Edward was born. I've seen claims online in forums that Henry VIII provided a stipend for Richard Edwards's upbringing and paid for his education at Oxford, and also that his mother Agnes was allowed to add Tudor roses to her personal crest. But these seem to be rather wild claims not backed up by any evidence. Well, none that I found, and nobody making these claims online backs them up with any sources. And in my research, I've never found Edwards mentioned in grants or expenses for the time he was at Oxford. If anyone out there knows more about Agnes or Richard Edwards, then please do share your findings. I'd love to know more about them and if there are any links to Henry VIII. But for now, I have to conclude that there's no truth to the idea that Richard Edwards was Henry VIII's son. After all, the only evidence seems to be family legend and his Oxford education. Such a big leap. I'd love to know your thoughts and also hear if you've done some digging into Richard Edwards at all, perhaps as part of your ancestry. Thank you for joining me. Please do like this video if you've enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel as well, because it really helps people to find me on YouTube. Take care and I'll see you soon. Bye.